Communication queen Kellyanne Conway was able to look at the White House and say, there it is.
There it is.
A second ago, and she is now on our couch.
Where's
Kellyanne,
your office going to be?
Welcome back.
I'll never tell. I'll tell soon. Thank you.
How's it going?
It's fabulous. We're having a great transition. Amazing tech meeting yesterday where titans from across the country came in and sat with the president-elect, the vice president-elect, and talked about how they can work together on cybersecurity, on repatriating funds from abroad, and certainly increasing vocational educational opportunities in technology. I thought it was fantastic.
I know you're focusing now on the cabinet. 16 positions, 2 of them have not been filled. When can we expect to see those being named? Those
interviews are ongoing, Ainsley, and we're just really happy with the pace and the execution. I mean, this is a very Donald Trump project, isn't it, the cabinet? Under budget and ahead of schedule. We are ahead of the past presidents of, I think, the last 40 or 50 years, Republican and Democrat, and that includes a George Herbert Walker Bush, who was a sitting vice president, certainly knew many people who he might want to put in the cabinet. It's also the result, each of these positions is the result of any number of interviews. Very qualified, capable men and women, all of whom have come in, about 90 strong now, have met with the president-elect and the vice president-elect. It's been an incredible opportunity for all of us to even witness, because they come in and they share their vision and their ideas and their experiences, and they just want to help. They all love America. They want to help this next administration. Some will end up in the cabinet and some won't.
Of course, the big job was Secretary of State. We found out this week that the president-elect's pick is Rex Tillerson, that is to say. It's interesting. There's a story out there today that says that Mitt Romney, who the president-elect really became fond of after the election, one of the reasons he didn't wind up with the job was he would not publicly apologize for the stuff he said before the election.
I've never been in any conversation, any meeting where somebody said that was a condition of him being Secretary of State. If that were true, then perhaps he wouldn't have been invited in the first place. He was invited because the president-elect wanted to interview him for the position of Secretary of State. We had many qualified candidates. You have to be comfortable with someone that's going to also execute on the Trump doctrine, if you will, and advance U.S. interests around the globe. So the fact that others were not chosen is really nothing against them, so much as in the case of Mr. Tillerson, you're just dealing with what Mr. Trump has called a, quote, world-class player, somebody who's already done these deals, negotiated, somebody who's familiar with Russia, China, Yemen, the Middle East, the developing world, has been active in 50 countries.
Yeah, but he's so cozy with Vladimir Putin.
Oh,
aren't you watching the other channel?
He's not cozy, but he certainly knows how to get deals done. He certainly understands Russia, and he has said no to Vladimir Putin. So this is somebody...
When did he say no?
Well, I've read that in comments that he's made. Again, remember, they're private negotiations between ExxonMobil and heads of state, or folks who are in other positions of authority, Brian, in these countries. And it's not as if, you know, they throw out these words so that everybody gets very concerned and very nervous. And I think it's unfortunate, because if you look back 8 years ago when President-elect Obama was forming his cabinet, the first 7 nominees sailed through pretty much, and Hillary Clinton became the Secretary of State on a voice vote. So we would like the same courtesy. You know, every single time we lift our head up, somebody's just trying to throw roadblocks. And I think the American people are reacting in a certain way. The president-elect has his highest favorability rating on record and climbing. And people just want to give him a chance to form his own government. I also saw in the Fox News poll, 59%, 6 in 10 say that Russian hacking didn't help him win the election. They don't see that
the CIA thinks that there could be a possibility of a connection with Russia. So House Intelligence Committee said, let's have a briefing today on Thursday. And the intelligence community said, hold on, we don't have anyone from our intelligence agency that wants to go in front of the House to talk about it. Does that mean there's not enough evidence?
Could be. It also, I think, is indicative, Ainsley, of some of the disagreement we saw even in the press and blind quotes earlier in the week between the intelligence officials, which is fine, except people should recognize that there's unsourced, unnamed quotes flying around from folks who either are leaking from previous House Intelligence Committee briefings or from other entities. And what I don't like is they just draw this direct nexus between the possibility of hacking and the election result. And that's just not right. Let's roll the tape of everyone, all those geniuses on TV, all the people on Team Clinton. Let's roll the tape leading up to the actual election day. How many people were talking about this as interfering in the election? They were talking about what they were going to do in the West Wing, that the path was closed, we can never win. Nobody talked about this. It's not like Jay-Z gave a shout-out about Jim Comey or Vladimir Putin. So
Right. Let's talk about Josh Earnest. And I've never remembered this, a press secretary really playing politics from the White House
agreed.
When his candidate is not even running. But here he's saying Donald Trump actually called on Russia to hack. Listen.
The Republican nominee himself calling on Russia to hack his opponent. It might be an indication that he was obviously aware and concluded, based on whatever facts or sources he had available to him, that Russia was involved. The Republican nominee chose a campaign chair that had extensive, lucrative, personal financial ties to the Kremlin. And it was obvious to those who were covering the race that the hack and leak strategy that had been operationalized was not being equally applied to the two parties.
That is just remarkable. That is breathtaking. I guess he's auditioning to be a political pundit after his job is over soon. That is incredibly disappointing to hear from the podium of the White House press secretary, because he essentially stated that the president-elect had knowledge of this, maybe even fanned the flames. It's incredibly irresponsible, and I wonder if his boss, President Obama, agrees. President
Obama
does,
because he said it on the Daily Show a couple of days prior that the Republican, that Donald Trump called for the hacking of Hillary Clinton's emails. Remember when he made that sarcastic, what he claimed to be sarcastic comment that, hey, Russia, let's find those 30,000 deleted emails after. The president said that.
Well, that's unfortunate, too, but he's also said this was a fair and free election. He also congratulated the president-elect and conceded the election results to him, as did his Secretary Clinton. Look, we should really be talking about what we know, not what we don't know. And what we know is that Hillary Clinton selfishly set up a private server that put us all at risk.
Sure.
And so when you're talking about hacking into emails, why have we left behind the piece of evidence that's right in front of us? Because what are people going to say, folks, that, oh, we've already investigated that. We had those two Comey things. We already know everything about that. Do we? In other words, she got this party started. But I think coming from the podium and basically trying to relitigate a political campaign when the president and the president-elect and their senior staff are trying to work together very closely to have a peaceful transition of power in our great democracy with just about a month plus to go, I find that to be very unfortunate.
But you know why they're doing it. At first, the recall didn't work, so what do? Plan B. All right, let's start throwing stuff out about Russia.
Well, Jim Comey and
some
movement that we're not involved with at all.
But ultimately, this is just mainstream media, legacy media, establishment media, and the political left trying to discredit Donald Trump even before he takes office.
There's going to be a backlash, Steve. I really think so, because this is what happened during the campaign. People were told, this is what's important to you. Stare at this. This issue is critical to your vote. This is going to win the election. And people rejected it. They said this election and this presidency are about some very simple truths. I don't want Obamacare to continue. I want more free market, patient-centric health care. I do like the 25 million jobs being created over 10 years. Hey, why not unleash energy investments in our country? Coal, shale. We have energy under our feet and off our shores. So when you want something made in the USA, go develop energy. It's right here. I mean, people responded to his very specific solutions and messages. They're going to see this as a continuation of the permanent campaign of people who just can't get over themselves, their bad predictions, frankly, and the fact that they wanted a different result. But she started this with her illegal server.
Well, and also look at Jill Stein. She wanted to spread the narrative that it wasn't fair. These elections weren't fair. They were hacked into. And then she had the recount. She raised all this money for the recount.
And we picked up more votes. Thank you, Jill Stein. We didn't know we had those couple extra thousand votes.
A couple of things. John Kerry and Barack Obama both have said at different times that after talking, the president-elect and president who's leaving have hit it off so well that President Obama is indicating that he thinks he's winning Donald Trump over when it comes to repeal and replace Obamacare and not tearing up the Paris Agreement and taking another visit at the Iranian agreement. Has the president-elect begin to give on some of these issues because he's talking so extensively to President Obama?
No, they're talking extensively because they respect each other. They realize that when you're a president of the United States, that's very, very few people ever. I think there are 7 now living, and you can learn from each other. There's no question. And they both love their country. They want that peaceful transfer of democracy. Substantively on the issues, ideologically, there's not going to, what Donald Trump said in the campaign is who will be as president. And he has a very, very specific 100-day plan. If people want to pull it up, they can, Brian. And those specifics.
Nothing's changed?
Well, he had an on-the-record interview with the New York Times where he addressed some of this. He said he's going to look at everything. He's going to consult with his experts. He's not willing to make policy right now while he's the president-elect. But everybody knows Donald Trump. You know where you stand on the issues with Donald Trump. They can look at the 100-day vision and rest assured, because he has a Republican House and a Senate, and he has Republican state legislatures and Republican governors to buttress all this. He's a guy who's going to accomplish many great things very quickly.
Kellyanne, real quick, you've known Donald Trump for a while, since he was elected president of the United States, because we've been watching. It seems like he's changing a little bit. Somebody told me yesterday he seems much more presidential. Up close, have you noticed a change?
Well, I've always found him to be presidential and a true leader. He's incredibly engaging, brilliant, obviously. We don't know when he sleeps, so don't ask. I would lose that bet.
Or if.
But I will tell you one thing about him. He clearly is struck by the gravity and responsibility of the job. He knew that going in, but I think it's like anything else in life. Until it actually descends upon you, that gravity and responsibility, and with it comes a certain humility.
You guys have also been very honest in telling us the timetable of secretaries. You'll say, stay tuned tomorrow, and sure enough, look out in the morning, and it happened. What can we look for today?
Unless he announces it on stage.
Right, But Kellyanne, what can we look for the rest of the week?
So these other two cabinet positions that will still be filled, Brian, I think you're going to see some senior staff appointments coming out and being made public. And that's important because the president-elect has been surrounded by a very small but very loyal and very sharp team that helped him, I think, leverage his obviously natural gifts and his vision, his voice in becoming president of the United States. So you're going to start to see that, and some of the deputy secretaries will take hold as well.
VA, and then what's the other
Agriculture.
one? Agriculture.
All right.
And then Kellyanne's future. We got to.
Well, I worked on a blueberry farm for 8 summers, but nobody's asked me about ag.
All right.
I can't see you doing that.
Kellyanne, thank you very much.
Thank you.